My name is Felicity Mosheshe, and I will be your facilitator this afternoon. So this webinar will be an hour and a half long, and we'll be covering quite a lot in this afternoon. I'll firstly be taking you through how to log in as a first-time user, meaning you've never accessed the system before and you are logging on for the first time. Secondly, I will be doing it for returning users. This means that you've logged onto the system before, and now you are just re-entering again. It somewhat looks similar, but there are some changes there. And it's much shorter, in fact, for returning users. And then how to reset your password. In the past, this used to be a nightmare for a lot of officials where you had to ask for a lot of assistance, but DDD has now put the power back in your hands where you are in a position to reset your own password successfully. And then I will just be taking you through the basic navigation of the dashboard. Please note, the session is not designed to unpack, underperformance of subject and learners, just showing you basic navigation. But please do join our Thursday and Friday webinars that take place at 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock that do unpack specific topics every single week. I'm just going to go on, and then we are starting with how to log on for a first-time user. So in order for you to gain access on Triple D, you must have completed a Triple D access form. So this form requires you to put in details regarding which province, for example, you belong to, the district, your name, your surname, email, and all those different particulars, and obviously getting sign-off from your supervisors. Once that is done, you then will receive an email. So for those who don't know even where to obtain this form to begin with, I can be able to assist with that towards the end of the session, just to flag out where that is on this main website in my background. But essentially, all of you today already have accounts, and I believe our communications team has already reset the bulk of the usernames and passwords yesterday, as well as today. So please do check your emails that you used when registering for DDD. Sometimes they don't land automatically in your inbox. You may find them in your junk mail or your spam folder. So please just check that out. And if you obviously need any assistance, please just email the help desk. There is a colleague of mine, Helen, who is also on the call, I believe. She'll also just jot down her email address if there's anybody in the session that just needs assistance with username and password reset. So the email comes in this fashion. It'll say, for example, dear Andile Nkosi, give you all these different particulars, and what you are obviously most interested in is your username and your password. The one thing I'll always say, passwords can be forgotten. A lot of the times that happens, but please never forget your username. And the beauty with 2.0 now is that usernames are honestly not that confusing. It's your name, one name, dot surname at dbedashboard.co.za. But remember, you must have received the particulars via email. So for example, for somebody who's never filled out that form, you can't just simply go into the system and type in your first name and your surname and automatically think you'll be logged in. You need to register first, okay? And then it will give you that default password, which I will be outlining in the next couple of slides, how we go about it. There are two browsers we normally recommend that you utilize: Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge. And then once you've done that, you're going to just simply type in that URL link area, www.ddedashboard.co.za. Once that's been typed in, you are then prompted to this next page where you simply just need to click on log in. Sorry, these faces that I have in front of me are distracting me. So I just had to minimize my screen there. So this is what you would then be led to. It's requiring you to put in your username. So in some devices, it's laid out quite nicely, as you see in the screen, where it'll say firstname.surname@dbedashboard.co.za. But in some cases, it's just blank. It's requiring something that almost looks like an email. And this is really that important area where a lot of officials make a mistake. It's not requiring you to put in your Gmail or your Yahoo account or your, education account. It's requiring you to put your DDD username, which looks like an email because it's got the .co.za. So you enter that. So in my example, it's andila.nkosi@dbedashboard.co.za. I click next. Thereafter, it asks me to enter a password. You are entering the password you received via email. You are not yet entering the password of your choice. The password of your choice will be prompted on the next page. Okay. Really, really important as well to just ensure that when you are entering this password, it is case sensitive. So enter it exactly as it appears. Don't enter, for example, the 6 characters and then you leave a little space as well and then click enter. Ensure that it is precise. You click sign in and then it prompts you to this next page where it requires you to enter the current password. The current password is the one you would have received via email. And then you get prompted to now enter the password of your choice. So the password of your choice needs to be entered twice. You enter it once and then you reconfirm it. But there is very, very important information you need to note when creating the password of your choice. It needs to have 8 characters minimum. So it can be more than 8, that's fine, but minimum 8. And it must contain 3 of the 4 characters. It must be lowercase and uppercase, have numbers or a symbol. Okay, so please just remember this because a lot of the times whenever we are in training rooms, this can be an area of frustration where you are entering a password maybe that you normally use only to find that that password doesn't have, a capital letter, an uppercase letter, and then it keeps rejecting those credentials. All right. And then you simply click on sign in. And then next. Please note, I am just moving through this initial login, stage and process, but I will be pausing just after this area to just give time for any questions or comments. So what is new with regards to Triple D 2.0 is the fact that it actually requires you now to link your DDD account to a cell phone. And this is actually the great area about this particular tool now, is that it puts you in a position where in the future, if the need arises, you are able to reset your own password successfully. So I always say whenever I'm engaging with my officials in the provinces, please do not click skip setup because essentially you're setting yourself up for disaster. So never just skip this process, actually go about it. So by default, it lands on United States. You will then use the drop down, just search for South Africa, and then enter your cell phone number. So a lot of the times, I get the question to say, well, it's already saying +27. So do I just omit the 0 in the 079, or do I then just say 79? I normally encourage that you just put in your entire cell phone as is, it works. So 079, put that fully. And then by default, it already lands on text me the code and then click next. Once you've clicked next, it then sends a SMS to that number you have then just, inserted there. So you're just going to receive that SMS with that 6-digit code. You enter the code and then you click next. Now, whenever you are doing this, we live in these modern times where some of us have got more than one phone. Just ensure that the phone you are using or the number you're entering there is a phone you have in hand at the time so that you're able to immediately see the code and then enter the code in. Then you click next. It'll tell you the SMS has been verified. Your phone is registered successfully. Similar message about success appears. You just click done. And then it will ask you whether you want to get signed in or not, or rather stay signed in or not. And you would normally just click yes. And then you are landed there on the dashboard. So that is how you successfully log in as a first-time user onto the new Triple D dashboard. I'm going to pause here for any comments or questions thus far. Okay, Jerry, over to you.
Felicity, we do not have any questions. Just a reminder, use the Q&A option at the bottom there if you have any question as we take you through the entire process of logging in and resetting your password. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see my colleague Helen has also just dropped her details there in the Q&A. So if you do not have a username and a password currently in your emails, please do just reach out to her through the email she's just indicated, and she can quickly reset your password for you. The disclaimer though there is that please ensure you know the email address you used when registering for DDD. That is quite critical. If you're not sure, I mean, you could provide 2 alternative emails, but please just do provide those. How to log into DDD for returning users. So as I mentioned earlier, these steps are quite similar, but the great thing about returning users is that the process is much shorter as opposed to the one we just went through now. So you still need to access, via the internet browsers. We are recommending Chrome or Microsoft Edge. You then type in that URL link, www.dbedashboard.co.za. And then you land there on the login page. You simply click on login. And this is something now that might jar a few people and stumble them a bit. So I'll deal with what we see there on the left-hand side of the screen. So on the left is what I already explained initially. So if you are somebody who doesn't have, another Microsoft 360 account, 365 account, this is ideally what you would then see on the left. It's just going to require you to enter your username as we did in the previous step. However, in a lot of the provinces, you already have other Microsoft accounts that exist. So then you might find an area where it's asking you to select either or. So it's always important to ensure and to ask yourself, what am I actually trying to log into? You're trying to log on to the dashboard. Remember, you typed in www.dbedashboard.co.za, and therefore you're on that site. Then you have to select your username for the dashboard, because if you select any other entity there, it's going to continue to be a blocker, and you're going to be thinking something is wrong with your dashboard when in fact you just haven't selected the right account. Okay. Once you've done that, it then prompts you to that area where you put where you enter your password. Remember, this is no longer the password you received via email. That one is no longer relevant in this case. This is now that one that you would have created that is 8 characters minimum, contains 3 of the 4, which is a lowercase, an uppercase, that symbol, or the number. And that's what you'd be entering here. Then you click on sign in. That prompt will come up again of stay signed in. Sometimes it doesn't, because ideally you click on yes so that you don't keep seeing that message, and then it logs you straight onto the dashboard. So literally simple, easy peasy in that manner. You'll notice in this returning user one, it no longer wants those details of the cell phone and all of that, because you've already done that process. Your cell phone is successfully registered onto the system. All right. I'll pause there. I see maybe 3 other comments that have come into the Q&A. Jerry?
Thanks, Felicity. The first one is from Deboho. Mine does not want to log in. It says incorrect password. I don't know, you want to take it, Felicity?
All right. So, Deboho, you say yours says incorrect password. So, one, I would say just ensure that you are, number one, entering all credentials properly, right? So, remember, I mentioned that whereby, for example, the characters could be 6 or 8 characters as you're getting in the default email, right? And then when you're entering it, maybe you're manually typing it in, or you took it as a copy and paste. But now when you're pasting it, you took a little bit of extra space, you didn't end right where that letter or that number ends. And when you put that onto the system, it will then reject you. And then the other alternative is just in that Q&A where my colleague Helen has just indicated her email, if you could just type in your email address so that she's able to then just try and reset that password for you. Okay, and you already have a username if you're saying it's rejecting your password. So you could even just provide your dashboard username so that you can then just quickly assist there by resetting it again. I hope that answers it. Okay, Jerry, the next one.
We have another one. Ronel says, good day. I have not received my email with password. Let's call Malelani. Then they provided the email address.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I don't know, Jerry, does Helen have a microphone? If you could maybe just allocate her a mic. I want to know whether she prefer, okay. I just want to know, Helen, from you, if you prefer that they email you directly or if them just putting the details in the Q&A is sufficient.
Helen, if possible, can you raise your hand? I can't find you in. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I'm going to allow you to talk. You can select the unmute button.
Thanks so much, Jerry and Felicity, and thanks so much to all the officials who have joined this webinar. Apologies to the people who haven't received their password reset yet. You've got two options. You can email me, helen@newleaders.co.za. Alternatively, if you drop either your DDD username, your email address, or even your name and surname, I'll be able to find you on my list and I'll send you a password reset that will come from help@DDD Dashboard.co.za. And yeah, this information will be provided to you, like Felicity said, at the end of the session, and you'll be able to respond to that email if you have any questions following the session. So don't worry if you're not 100% up to speed right now. We'll make sure that by the end of the day, or at least the end of the week, you're 100% sorted. So yeah, you can drop it into the chat or you can send me an email. Back to you, Felicity.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Helen. All right, Jerry, is there one last comment or is it something that Helen's already addressed?
So we have another one from Paulina. Hi, Felicity.
Okay.
You said something about SAYS, that
Yes.
there are points that will be earned. So only teachers can log in.
Okay, so yes, I mean, if you are able to get SAYS points, I know that usually it works from a school level. I'm not so sure about district officials unless I'm ill-informed, but if you are able to get SAYS accredited points to you, you can attain them through these webinars, but it's subject to the fact that you enter the entire duration. So it's not just unique to this one specifically we have today, even the Thursday and Friday ones that take place from 12 until 1 o'clock. If you join those, just provide your SAYS membership number as well as your ID, and that will be linked up for you. Okay. All right. Any other one, Jerry?
And maybe just to add on this. So in terms of logging in, just for clarity, so let's say you're an administrator and you want to log into the dashboard, you can still get access. You don't need SAYS in order for you to access the dashboard. So even if you're an administrator at district level, SAYS is not a requirement in order for you to have access to the dashboard. Thank you, Felicity.
Thanks, Jerry. I see other comments trickling in.
They are coming in. Priscilla. Priscilla mentioned that they have not received the username and password. As mentioned before, please send an email to helen@newleaders.co.za so that we can see if you do have access and we'll be able to reset your password. Right, moving right along. Again, did not receive an email. I must attend the web saying, I did not receive my login details, only received an email saying I must attend the webinar. Perfect. So also the same situation as others, send an email to helen@newleaders.co.za and we will be able to assist you there. And please do include your username.
All right. Thanks so much, Jerry. I see two hands that are raised, but before the hands come in, just please do note, though, that especially for people who are saying they received the invite to this meeting, I do suspect that you do also have the username and the password, but you may have missed it. And I'll just go back to the point that I mentioned earlier, that sometimes it does not land in your inbox. So please do check your spam and your junk mail. And then if that still also doesn't fare well for you, then I would resort to emailing Helen, or alternatively in the Q&A, please just type in there your username, your name, your surname, or your email address, okay? That will help quite a bit. So I'm just going to afford an opportunity for the two hands raised, Jerry, and thereafter I will have to move on. We can still obviously ask questions as I go ahead.
I see Helen's hand. I'm not sure if it's an old hand or a new one.
Okay, it must be an old one. Okay, and the other hand?
Most probably. Mule, I'm going to allow you to unmute please select the unmute button. Mula, you have your hand up. Please click on the unmute button so you can pose your question here. Mule Madonzela.
Yes, I don't. I didn't. Did I raise my hand? I think it's a mistake. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I didn't mean to. No, I don't. I really don't have a question. Thank you.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much, Ma.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Jerry. I will proceed. If you could please just in the Q&A close all the other ones that have been addressed already so that I don't think we have 23 questions when in fact we only have 2. And then I'll just proceed now to the next slide. I see other questions are maybe popping up, but I'll give a chance for that in a minute. Okay. So now I've covered already 2 segments, how to log in for first-time user, how to log in for returning user. And we're about to just touch on the last very important step, how to reset your password for DDD. I always joke in my training sessions and I'm like, if DDD had to do with money, no one in this room would forget their password, but it's okay. I understand. We have a lot going on in various passwords for various platforms. So people usually then forget this. But in the case that you do forget your password, this is what you then do. The step remains the same. Choose one of these 2 internet browsers, type in that URL link, www.dbedashboard.co.za, and thereafter just click on the login button. Still going to require you to put in your username. So that's why I always say you can forget a lot, but do not forget your dashboard username because that really just assists in the whole process as well. It's quite easy. I do not think anybody here should be forgetting their first name and their surname. And then thereafter, when it gets to the password area, you will then just click there on forgot my password, which will then prompt you to the next page. And this is the area here where some people get slightly confused. So it says email or username. And because people see the word email, they do get tempted to want to put in their, DBE government, emails or your Yahoo or your Gmail one. It's essentially asking you for your dashboard username, which looks like an email. Okay, so please do just enter that there. So in my example, andile.nkosi@dbedashboard.co.za. Then it's got a couple of characters there at the bottom that you just also have to type out. So there is an icon there. You'll notice near that area on the right-hand side where it's almost like a sign. Like audio one 4U5V. Alternatively, just click on. So it's simply just going to give you new characters. Jerry, let me pause here. Am I still audible? I'm getting a message that my internet is not stable.
Yeah, it was a bit offish, but
Shaky.
I think you're back.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll just repeat that last sentence. It's just around the special characters that appear just below that. Please do enter them as you see them. If you're unable to see them clearly, there is an audio button there towards the right-hand side and a refresh button as well, where it can then just bring about new characters so that you can then be able to type that in. Then you click next. Then this is also very important. It now takes you to this area where it wants you to put in your cell phone number. Now, this is a part that also needs you to be very cautious when dealing with it. There, you can already see in that area there in the brackets, it's got like an outlined number. If maybe I can be a little bit of a teacher here underlining. There we go. So that particular area that I'm speaking to there, it will tell you that particular number that you registered with ends with 10. So you need to ensure that when you enter the cell phone number here, it's the one that actually ends with 10, and you're not now putting in a different number that it doesn't recognize, because then this whole process would not work. Then you then click text. It's going to text you that 6-digit code that you will receive through SMS. And then you just enter that 6-digit code over here and you click next. And now you're in a position to reset your own password. You will enter your password once and then re-enter it again. the same principle applies. Minimum 8 characters must contain 3 of the 4, which is an uppercase, lowercase, number, or symbol. Okay, then you click finish. Click here, it's just going to keep prompting you. You then obviously would select the correct account, which is your DDD Dashboard 1. Enter this new password. So you can almost see this is trying to entrench this information that you've just put in to make sure that you really do remember your credentials. Enter that new password of yours, and then you would be logged onto the dashboard successfully. Okay. So ideally, we don't want people to be resetting their own passwords, but I'm happy that this new particular DDD 2.0 actually allows it to be a more seamless process where you are not really having to engage with EMIS or the help desk for support unless, you really are coming across, unique kind of challenges there. Okay, let me pause here, Jerry, for the officials that may have had questions before I go now onto the demo.
All right, then we have Ulanda. I need to register one of my schools, bonsai, and there is an EMIS number there.
Okay, no problem, sir. As indicated towards the end of the webinar on our website, I'm going to be able to show you where you can actually get the DDD access form. So as Jerry indicated, the DDD dashboard is accessible to all education officials. So for as long, obviously, that you've got like a parcel number, that's quite key. So for interns, it's a bit tricky, but if you are within the system, you're able to have access. And for all school level users. The only disclaimer that I need to make known in the room today about school officials is that if you are the principal of the school, you want access for yourself, you want it for your deputies, your deputy head, your deputy principal, your deputy heads, and just educators. It is feasible, even the admin, as Jerry mentioned, they can all get access. But the only important thing to factor in is that when you are completing that DDD application form, each official must have a unique email address. So they can't all want to use the school's address because then the system reads it as a duplication. And it also just makes common sense. Your credentials get sent personally to you, to your email address. So when everybody is clunked onto one email, it defeats the whole purpose, and it has serious infringements when it comes to just POPI Act and data security. So that is the only disclaimer I'd make there for school officials. Okay. Any other questions, Jerry, before I proceed?
There's one that says, "Good day, Helen." Then I see a follow-up question. I have my username, however, I'm struggling with my password.
That's a unique one. I think for that official, my question is, have you logged on before? Because if you say you've got a username, but there's no password. So I would ask myself, you basically would not be characterized as a new user. Maybe you are a returning user. So resetting your password might be something that works for you. So perhaps this previous slide that I just went through, enter that username, go to that area that says forgot password, and see where it leads you. If you obviously experience a blocker, please just engage with Helen there in order to just get some assistance, okay? I recommend that if you want speedily assistance, to just honestly take down Helen's email, whether you email her after the session today or during the session, because you will just get, quicker response time as well, as opposed to just leaving it until a couple of days later, okay? We really want to make sure that by the end of this month, all of the people that have never accessed the dashboard are sorted. Okay, Jerry, are you happy for me to proceed?
There are a couple of questions, but maybe we can take them later on.
Okay.
But then I think there is some commonalities there. They're all asking about their password. As mentioned, you don't have to provide us with your email address here. Just email helen@newleaders.co.za if you have not received your username and your password. So I think I'll close all the other questions asking about not receiving the details.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jerry. Okay, moving right along. Now I'm about to show you the dashboard navigation aspect. So This is for somebody who now has had their username, their password, they managed to log on to the system. This is ideally what you would then see represented in front of you. Please note, I am using a demo data set, so it's not going to reflect any real provinces or districts within our education system. It's just anonymized. So first things first, when you land on the dashboard, it lands you there where you see that one represented, which is the overview page. And it really isn't the naming convention where it gives you an overall of whatever entity you're looking at. You'll keep hearing me throughout the session today speaking about entity. So that will also be represented in my next slide where we get to better understand which entity is which. So in this case, I'm looking at a district and it's giving me the overview of that district. So I can then see, information like school count, learners wrote in that particular district and learner enrollment and so on. Then secondly, you also have additional information there on the blue pane. It's giving you the very same tabs that you have there on the dashboard. So as we can see, overview, detail, achievement, it's also represented on the left. But in addition to that, it's that area that I spoke about in our intro slides that I'm going to touch on later, which is the DDD Learning Hub, which is the new lever that we now have on the dashboard. And you can almost think about it as your little help guide to help you navigate the dashboard as best as possible in our absence as well when we are not there to facilitate the session for you. Okay. And then, thirdly there that I didn't touch on, you get that option of full screen as well. So you could always just put it in full screen mode so that you're not seeing the blue pane and that the image just gets enlarged in front of you. And there's also an arrow here as well that just allows that blue pane to also just fall back and disappear if that's not what you're interested in the time. You simply click on that arrow again, it will expand it back into the picture. Okay, so that's essentially what that is. And then we now are going to get into the entities and what each of them mean. So number one is the entity filters. So what you'll notice about the new dashboard, it's essentially like an Excel document live. It's a Power BI tool where now we're able to just, have these filters in place and easily navigate our data in a fast and easier way as well. So the entity filter still gives you that information around province, region, district, circuit, clusters where they're applicable, and schools. And all you need to do is just ignite that drop-down arrow in order for you to select what's relevant to you. The second one here is the name of the entity level. So whenever maybe you are getting some sort of assistance from a help desk team or a provincial member from our team, and they're asking you, what entity level are you on? This is essentially the area they're referring to. They're trying to find out, what are you looking at that moment? Are you at a circuit view? Are you at the district view? Are you at the provincial view? Okay, in order for them to then be able to provide whatever guidance or assistance. Third and most important, honestly, I think this has been for me the game changer in 2.0, is the ability for these selection filters. So for example, in this current view I've selected a district, right? But you'll notice here where it says phase, grade, and subject, nothing has been selected yet, meaning I'm looking at that district in its entirety. But if I want to now get more specific, I, for example, am a subject specialist or a deputy head and I'm responsible for English file. I can then go to the drop-down arrow for subject and only select English file, and all the data you see below will be reflected of English file stats, okay? And then similar to that, you could even add on and say English file 4, grade 10. Again, the stats will change to be specific to what you've selected at the time. And then again, for people like our subject specialists, you get the phases one way. You might not want to look at it one by one per grade. And even for deputy heads, I think this is valuable. You can then look at a cluster or a phase to say, let me actually look at the intermediate phase in the performance of our school. And then that data will get visualized in that manner as well. And then, of course, lastly, it's those 4 tabs, or rather the 5 tabs that I touched on already, which is overview, detail, achievement, term to date, and reports. I will be touching on each of these, but remember, I'm just gliding through them. I am not deep diving into any of this information in today's session. And then last but not least, you obviously, as I mentioned, land by default on the overview page. But please do note there's a wealth of knowledge on the other tabs as well that you ought to also click on as well in order to have thorough analysis and, just do a deep dive into performance that you're looking at. Okay. Right, I'm just going to touch on these entity filters again, just speaking to those drop-down arrows. So I've already touched on how the drop-down arrows work. At the other important area as well is the clear filter functionality, which is equally important. So for anything you are selecting, you want to also be able to deselect it. So in this example, maybe you may have clicked on District 1, but for whatever reason, you then decide I need to go to District 2 and compare that analysis. So you simply just clear the filters in order to then navigate there to your District 2. Or alternatively, you could just also use the drop-down arrow, deselect, and then select what is relevant to you at the time. All right. The entity levels are there, as we've spoken about, and that clear enter filter button. So now let's do an example for the school one in terms of the drop-down arrow. When you click on it, options will obviously appear regarding that district and the schools that exist within that district. You will then select the school of your choice. Please also note that there's a search engine available here. So if you didn't want to manually scroll through a list of many, many schools, you could just manually quickly type green school, and then green school or green primary school would then appear, and you'd be able to now start analyzing that data. Then again, remember to always clear your filter if you are done viewing that specific area. And then the other important part is around using the selection filters. So you've selected a school already. Now you want to ignite those filter icons. Something that I didn't touch on in the previous slide was this year and term one. And this is quite key because a lot of the times in the education system, we are having to do analysis of historic data, where you must now look at, the past 4 years performance, 2 years performance, and so on. So this really allows you, especially for school officials where, your information, once the quarter is over and SSMs, it's done with and it's gone, you almost have an area where you're able to reference this historic data and be able to see how your school has been performing, how the circuit's been performing in subjects and so on. So you just simply select the year of your choice with the quarter. And then once you've selected that, it will then be visualized. So in my example here, I've selected 2022 quarter 2. You then can select phase. We're selecting foundation phase here. Select the grade of your choice, grade 3, and then the subject there as well. And what you'll already notice, if you select something like, foundation phase grade 3, it already locks you in to the subjects that are available for that particular phase and that grade, okay, given the province as well that you are living in. So in some areas, Setswana home language might be prominent, where in others it's Setswana or isiZulu and so on. Okay. Always remember, please, to clear those filters. That is really, really key, because a lot of the times I've caught a few officials doing analysis. We're in the room, they're really enjoying and finding great insights. And then a second later, they're a little bit puzzled as to the numbers not really quite adding up. And then when we check these areas, it's, okay, I was actually still looking at grade 4 and I didn't move to grade 5 or whatever the case might be. So do utilize that clear filter functionality. Okay. Jerry, let me pause there. Are there any comments or questions before I proceed?
Yes, Felicity. Probably one that I need clarity on is from Ulanda. It says every time when I log in, it says not on master list. So Ulanda, we probably need some clarity there on what you are seeing, and probably just send the issue to help desk if it's speaking about master list, so that we can see where the issue is on your side. Then the next one from Samalani. Good afternoon. I think my laptop has a problem since I can't hear the audio. Samalani, please do not worry. As mentioned when we started this webinar, that will be sending you the voice recording of this session and also the attendance register, including this presentation. So you'll be able to review the session when you do have your connectivity sorted. Right. We have one from Kollega, says, thank you, Jerry. Karine says that I tried resetting my password now. It says I'm not registered for password reset. Karine, I'm thinking that you probably logged in for the first time and you probably skipped the authentication process where you had to put in your cell phone. Very important, ladies and gentlemen, if you do skip that cell phone authentication process, you will not be able to reset your password. So my advice would be to reach out to us so that we can be able to reset it on your behalf, and then you can now try to follow the authentication process so that next time when you forget your password, you'll be able to reset it yourself. Ulanda says, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Debo says, thank you. I managed to log on. Samuel says, from Winterfeld High School, they provided us with the email address. Says, please assist with login details. I will send you Helen's email address and you will be able to reach out to her. Felix, I think that is all. Let's just wait for Ulanda to give us clarity on the master list issue. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you so much for handling those questions there, Jerry. I'm happy that we're all able to follow, and really happy for those who've managed to log on. But those who haven't, please do not despair. Everyone will be assisted. Like Helen said, definitely before the end of the week. So please just do utilize her email address for any comments or queries there regarding password resets. Okay, thank you. Oopsie, I muted myself by mistake. What I will say, though, to the other official, Jerry, who's saying we've got audio problems, if you could please just type in the chat as a response to just say, can they try to log out of the session and log back in? A lot of the times that does help. But as you've said, the recording will also be available to them as well. Okay. So dashboard tabs and pages. Now let's get into the actual tabs. There are 5 tabs. Maybe let me just go into them briefly as to what each of them kind of speaks to you know, for lack of a better word. Overview, like I said, it's exactly that. It's giving you a generic view of this information. We get details. That's now doing a little bit more of a deep dive into the information we're going to be seeing on the overview. Achievement, I would say, is heavily focused on grade and subject performance. Term to date is essentially your weekly submission data. So the data you have right now in the term to date. Okay. So we'll also have a look at that. And then lastly, the reports at the moment, we have quite a few there. Okay. So in terms of the overview page, I'm not going to go into each of the tabs in detail, but we have them in 3 sections under planning information. Quite key there where we've got school count, learner road, and enrollment, educator count. I know this is an area a lot of the times in the districts, I get calls every quarter now and then, you know, just saying how many educators do we have for a specific subject or specific grades? And by obviously using these selection filters, select that specific grade or that specific subject, and that number should start to translate to whatever you've selected. But this is heavily reliant on data capturing on SA SAMS. Remember, the dashboard gets its data from SA SAMS. So if administrators or school, educators are not assigning teachers to subjects, this number will not tally very well. Okay. So if you already are a principal at a school and you know for a fact that you've got, 20 educators, and you know that for social science, there are 2 educators, but the system, for example, only says 1 educator, that's already a telltale sign to say, hang on, let's go on to SA SAMS and check whether this has been captured accurately, because when I'm monitoring on the dashboard, it's giving me different stats. Okay. So it's almost your lens into what is being captured on SA SAMS at a school level. You get the operational stats, which just gives you high level percentages of attendance of learners and educators and progressed learners. and then you get that learner pass rate info in terms of graphs. I think the only thing here that I could maybe try and, I want to magnify this, maybe speak to is this area here at the bottom that might confuse a few. So you'll see that it speaks about CY, term 1, and then it will say PY, term 4. So whenever we speak about CY, it's speaking about the current year, term 1. PY, previous year, term 4. Previous year, term 3. So I think that's the only new terminology there that you might not be accustomed to at the moment. But we also have those icons that are available there, which I do touch on in, the later slides. But whenever you click on those icons, it will give you essentially this information I am verbally outlining now. The details page actually looks similar to what we all knew on the previous dashboard with regards to just those matrix there around the pie charts. In these cases, I guess we call them donuts now. They look much smaller. So you still get that same matrix around task marks, the promotion of last year, the NEC past results, as well there as the learner and educator attendance. What is new on that page is now this particular information we see below. Not necessarily new in terms of it being new data, but in terms of it being visualized rather. So you get the school, performance attendance there in terms of educators and learners, and you get that in terms of the goal, the target. Okay, so the target for that we're trying, but in this case, we still only have it speaks to. My network is shifty again.
You are back, Felicity.
I hope I'm still audible. So thank you.
Yes,
Thanks, Jerry. Whenever it gives me that prompt, I just want to keep quiet before I go on and on. All right, thanks. Then we get the sub-entity table. This, for me, I think is the most exciting part about 2.0 and the data available to us. Please do join the Thursday and Friday webinars at 12 o'clock because they will unpack this section very well for you, because there's quite a lot that can be done with how you export this data onto Excel and things of that nature so that you can visualize it better. And in those webinars, they'll also touch on this area here that I'm not touching on in this webinar today. But just note that this is the information available. You also get task marks captured. Now, task marks captured are important from a point of view of understanding which tasks on SASAMs have been captured thus far. So, for example, in this, in your school, you will find that for a home language, English home language, learners' assessments haven't been captured at all on SASAMs. And, the quarter is almost coming to an end. And when you look at these graphs, it will then say, for example, 0% or 1%, because it's trying to show you, principal, deputy head, subject advisor, circuit manager, that you need to look into that because no data has been captured yet on SASAMs as it relates to learners' assessments. So again, great way to use the dashboard as a monitoring tool there. And then, of course, we get the promotions of the previous year together with that overage learner stats as well. Okay. Then we get our tabs. The other tab here is the achievement tab. Okay, and this particular tab is the one that I spoke to earlier, where you can find grade achievement and subject achievement. So already as you land on this page, it's giving you an overview of grade performance. And the grade performance, please note, no matter what you select in the selection filters, these numbers that you are looking at here do not change, okay? Because it's giving you grade performance. So it's telling you this is how these grades performed in terms of achieving and not achieving. So if you are selecting mathematics, please do not expect it to give you mathematics for grade 7 achievement. That information lies below this area, which is the next slide I'm on. If I had selected mathematics, for example, all these other subjects we are looking at here on the left-hand side of my screen wouldn't have appeared. I would just be seeing maths. But because in this particular example, I didn't select any subject, we then will see all the subjects represented in alphabetical order. You get to see the report mark. Please remember that is the SB inclusive of SBA. You get to see the comment test that excludes the SBA. And of course, we've got the exam pass rate for the terms where it is applicable. Okay, and then there's also that scroll icon that we have within there that allows you to navigate. So usually when you land here, people will say, but hang on, I don't see my subject. Use that little scroll icon to go further down to see all the subjects all the way down to the technical maths and things of that nature. And then another new metric we have on the dashboard is something called largest subject enrollment versus performance. This is honestly, in my opinion, a great value add. So remember, it's not saying these are the subjects at risk per se. I mean, there could be subjects that have low enrollment and they are at risk. It's just to say these are the subjects, for example, at a district, at a circuit, at a school level with a lot of learners enrolled for it. And let's look at the performance in relation to that. And as we can see here, mathematics obviously is the highest one, and we've got a large number of learners failing. But let's look at social science as an example, relatively lower numbers than the mathematics, but we have a higher percentage rate of failure, being at 30% as well. So already giving you those indicators of where to look and where to possibly intervene. Then you get the achievement trends below, giving it to you, throughout the different quarters. So current term, prior term, and so on. And please always remember, current term is subject to whatever you've selected in the selection filter area. I'm going to repeat that again. Current term that I've circled here at the bottom is subject to the term you have selected here in this particular selection filter area. I'm sorry, I'm squiggling around like I am a 5-year-old. My hand is shaking for some reason, but I'm hoping you're getting that rationale. And the reason why I make this emphasis of current term is because physically right now, we are all currently in Q2 of 2024. So one might quickly just be like, oh, well, it's giving me current term as in term 2 stats or whatever the case might be, or term 1. It all depends on what you've selected above. So if you had selected term 2 of 2022, your current term that you are viewing as of this line would be of term 2, 2022. Okay. Then you also get to see the largest subject performance in terms of variance. So the difference that lies between that inclusive of SBA and the one excluding SBA, how far is that gap? And I think this is a great telltale sign of even seeing some subjects that might qualify for SBA rejection in some cases, okay? So I think that's a great area to also just get those indicators from. Then we go on to the second to last tab, which is term to date. Remember, I mentioned this is regarding weekly submission. So who's submitting? Schools are submitting or are supposed to submit on a weekly basis. What are they submitting on a weekly basis? They have to submit attendance of learners and educators, but what they can also submit is task marks captured. And I touched on this earlier to say, as principals, as subject advisors, you can use this to monitor how this is being done. And I think this is somewhat a great example. So it's starting obviously from lowest to highest. So obviously the first week there being Jan, and when it goes up, it goes all the way to March. So what I mean by this is to say, schools just opened. We're not obviously expecting any marks. We're on the 3rd week of schools reopening. Okay, somewhat no marks are still captured. But now we're almost at the closure of a term, and only 1% of learners' assessments have been captured on SSMs. And that actually tells us why in the education system, we then experience such a long waiting period to now start getting analysis of results. I'm speaking now more to a circuit, district, provincial level. So obviously as schools, you already have the data at your fingertips on SSMs, but for everybody else above that, this is why it becomes instrumental, because it actually shows district and provincial officials that capturing and that specific entity we are looking at is being left for the last minute, or it's being left into the new quarter, which is ideally not what we would advocate for. Okay. So that's essentially what you can monitor on weekly or rather term to date tab. And then lastly, I'm going to just touch there on the 4 reports that we have currently. I'm not deep diving into them. So Learner Chart, a very popular report that assists you to identify learners at risk. Okay, and then School Achievement Report, I always say this is a great one where you want to identify schools that are underperforming as well, in relation as well to the subjects in those particular schools that could be dropping the performance of those schools. Then, of course, educator information is all about the educators, just giving us the attendance of those educators, qualifications, things of that nature. And then lastly, schools outstanding. This relates to termly submission. So, for example, we are now in Q2, and we are wanting schools to have obviously submitted data for Q1 2024. So any school that hasn't submitted data yet for Q1 2024 will appear under this list here, under schools outstanding. Okay, so if you are a school, please ensure that you are not on this list and that you submit your data diligently to allow for district officials to intervene and also give necessary assistance there. Okay, this is just an example of what the Learner Chart report looks like now in the new 2.0. Not going to deep dive on the information there, but I do urge, once you have your username and your password, to just play around with the tool and enter there and see what information is available to you. Okay. Let me pause there. Jerry, any comments or questions?
Thank you. We have one from Patricia just saying good afternoon. But one from anonymous attendee saying good afternoon. Please assist column for educator count and educator attendance is blank. All right,
sorry, let me just get that right, Jerry. You're saying the official is saying the attendance is blank. And the
educator count and educator attendance. And maybe I can come in there. Possibly you have not allocated your teaching load. My advice is for you to go in to module 2.1. Yes, 2.1 of SA Sense, and make sure that you allocate your teaching load of each and every educator in your school in order for you to see where your educators are in terms of attendance. Thank you. Then we have Lucille saying good day. Thank you for the informative webinar. My problem is that I'm not able to download the new Illustrator, so therefore I cannot upload weekly. Our SSM's IT aren't able to help either. Will you be able to assist during this webinar or not today? All right. Yes, Felicity.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And you honestly ask a critical question I think other officials on the call may have. So what I always urge, of course, you've tried the first channel of support, which was, you mentioned IT. So I'm not sure which province you come from, because a lot of the times it's EMIS officials that help, but I know that that overlaps into EMIS and IT working together in other provinces. If ever you are finding yourselves not getting assisted, if you're escalating things there through EMIS or your IT, please always utilize our help desk email. I will be sharing it just before the end of the session on the slides there. Please just ensure you grab that email. But remember, the slides will be shared with you, so you still also have that as a takeaway. But equally important to that help desk email, I think, is also identifying your provincial coordinator for DDD in your province. So, for example, I'm responsible for Northwest and Free State. So if anybody on this call is from either of those provinces, at the end of the slides, my details will be there in terms of email. You simply grab my email together with the help desk one, send an email to help desk and CC myself so that we can then just try and manage it better. Okay, but again, you definitely could get assisted as well before the end of the week. We just need to really ensure that we understand first the challenges you are facing. Okay, thank you for that. Jerry, is there any other comments or questions?
One from TJ. Thank you, much appreciated. Ronald came back to us and said, "Good day, I've been uploading by the new web instructor, but often get feedback from our second office that our database has not been submitted. But the instructor shows that it has been uploaded successfully. Is there a reason for this?" Should I take it, Felicity?
Yes, Joshua, Jerry.
All right. Ronald, so at the moment, we do have a bit of a challenge when it comes to processing of data. So you'll see that some schools, the data is showing on the dashboard, and some schools, the data is not uploading, and especially for term 1, 2024, for this term that passed. So please do note that we are investigating that issue. Probably for now, the best advice is to send us an email on helpdesk on help@ddddashboard.co.za, so we can add you to the list of some of the schools that need to be investigated. And then they should be aware that your school submitted, but then it's not reflecting. So as Felicity said, she will show you the email address where you can send your query, and we'll actually look into it and verify that you have successfully submitted, but still your data is not reflecting on the dashboard. Thank you, Felicity. I think one came through.
Okay.
Hey, hi, Felicity. I cannot print attendance register for learners from October to December. So can you assist me with that? What is happening? Will it open on the third term?
I'm not sure I'm understanding that, because we don't have a report that specifically deals with learner attendance. Like,
yeah, I think it's
yeah,
SSM's related.
yeah.
Can
Okay,
you
yeah, it may be
just reach
SSM.
out to your, can you reach out to your EMIS or IT if you can't print your attendance register for learners? I'm thinking it's an SSM's related problem. Reach out to your IT if you're in Gauteng, your EMIS support for all the other provinces, and let them know that you are struggling with printing your attendance, and maybe they'll be able to help you. And if not, they will escalate it to SSMs.
Yeah, okay.
I think
Thanks for
that's
that, Jerry. Thank you so much. I think the one thing I wanted to add to the last official that you were just responding to, I think one thing that may be missing in terms of just understanding how to escalate issues is, just also providing, where possible, a screenshot. So I like the fact that you already spoke to the fact that it says, well, my submission is successful. So when that happens, please, whether you're taking a photo of it or you're taking a screen grab, and then send that email through to help desk, and then you CC your provincial coordinator on DDD, just so that we can also visually see what's there and already, have a proper record. Because when you are not giving enough information, you might find that the need for back and forth just also prolongs a process that could be quite shortened. And it can also get quite frustrating from your end as well. So yeah, I really just encourage anything. It's not just regarding Bell Extractor. So even if there's a dashboard, like the question that came previously from the lady saying, but it's blank in terms of educate account, provide a screen grab, send it through, and then you'll find that, the response is quite quick and easy to deal with. All right. So additional dashboard features, I've touched on some of them, but I'll just repeat. Remember, I spoke to the eye icon for information. When you simply click on that, wherever you see it, it's going to give you a breakdown of each section. Remember, I was explaining earlier what CY stands for, current year, and, PY, prior term, previous year, where applicable. Okay, so that information is there. You also can get almost like a trend analysis as well to say, let's compare the prior year to the prior term. So is there an uptake in this? Are we seeing a down motion? And hence you're seeing those arrows. And of course, where it is stagnant, you'll see that dash. And wherever you see an NA, it means we did not have enough data or something is missing that does not allow us to actually plot in something there. Okay, so again, the dashboard can, and I encourage it be used as a monitoring tool as well, just so that you've got line of sight to say, I don't quite know what's being put into SSMs, but I can definitely go on the system and try and check whether these numbers indeed tally, especially regarding learner count and learner enrollment and things of that nature. Okay. right? And then, of course, I've already spoken to that last part there. I think what this particular slide is important about is to say, you might just be here hovering on this 50. I mean, you might just look at it and look at this 56%. But if you hover your mouse over it, this pop-up will appear that actually tells you, what the goal is. So what's the actual target? The target is 60, but it was obtained, at 56%. And that's why that graph is in red. And similar as well to that entity that we have there, we now can hover over the school's EMIS number. So the section here, when you hover over it, this particular detail will appear. It's that information you find on SA SAMS under general school information. So the school type, and all that various data that you get there. Okay, let me move on. I'd like to get into the Learning Hub. We have about, it's more or less around 16 minutes left because I do want to give time for other comments or questions before we officially close. So remember I mentioned the Learning Hub is on that blue pane on the left-hand side. You simply click on the Learning Hub once you are logged onto the dashboard. And then when you get here, you click on Sign In, and it should automatically open you up to this page. So over here, remember, this is not a dashboard. It's an extension of the dashboard and can be seen almost like a help guide that you can utilize. So the home page as well, please click through those videos when you're logging on for the first time, just so that it can actually also educate you, what is the Learning Hub about? What kind of information can I find here? What can I do here? And then what's important that I spoke to earlier is that next tab, which is courses. And you can find all sorts of courses. So for example, what I'm covering today with you in this section was Navigating 2.0. So you might find a lot of similarities when you go onto this course based on what I've just taken us through today. Okay, Accessing 2.0, you're going to find that information around, first-time login, returning user, resetting password. There's information around using the Velustrator. So maybe we have a school, in the session this afternoon that isn't necessarily struggling to upload the Velustrator. They just don't know how to go about it. You could easily come here and it can help guide you. And then events, it's still under courses. Then in events, you are then going to find that in your respective provinces and districts, there are webinars that take place, there are face-to-face trainings that take place. Think of this basically as an online registration form. So if you are, for example, in KZN and you were in the Utugela district training that was taking place, you would then go here where it says view details. It opens another tab, which requires a password. Remember, the facilitator for that session would already know the password. Everyone in the room enters that password, and then you are officially registered for that course to say you did attend on that day. Okay. So that's essentially what that is. And then for webinars as well, that exists. But for webinars, it's more around you having to then register for the webinar, as we've all been doing. Then lastly, it's around media library. Remember, we have our DDD newsletters that go out. So you're also able to, just view back on different issues that have been issued out already, and also just get to learn from what's taking place in various provinces. So I think for me, honestly, the media library is a great area just to learn in terms of best practices that are being shared across different provinces and districts as well. And then this particular slide, I won't go into detail, but I think as a takeaway, it's quite helpful for you all. You will find that it answers a lot of the questions that you might already have. Somebody might ask, how do I quickly navigate from a district, a circuit, and a cluster entity to a school entity? We essentially are breaking down the step one by one. Can I download the report? We're saying, yes, you can export the report and so on. Okay, how can I view my phase, in DDD 2.0? How do I see the number of schools that have submitted term to date? So these are all the areas that you can then be able to look at here on the dashboard. I'm going to give a chance for Q&A. I just want to flag out this email that Jerry and I have been emphasizing throughout. So please ensure you always have the DDD help desk email on standby. Okay, so ideally The channel of support is always through your EMIS or your IT first. Then if you're not getting any assistance or through them, you can then also be able to reach out to the help desk team, or they reach out to us directly. There's also a telephone number that you can then contact for some assistance there. Okay. But for the purpose of today's session, please don't forget Helen's email address there. She is there to assist you with user name and a password, or either resetting your credentials. All right. Then that is our team of great experts with regards to DDD, everybody there in the various provinces. So again, when these slides are shared with you, it's just a matter of allocating your province and then making sure that you then take down the email address for the person responsible together with that DDD help desk one, so that you are then able to escalate any issues. So it could be an issue of ValueStrack and submitting, or an issue of you not seeing the data you submitted, or it could just be a simple question of how do I identify learners at risk, and then we could go about assisting you a bit better. All right. Jerry, I think I'm just going to ask you to please launch the polls now. Remember, I said about 5 or 6 questions will be provided to you all just to gauge how the session was for you this afternoon. Jerry will just launch the polls while I also allow for any closing comments or questions.
Awesome. All right, I have launched the polls. We only have basically the last question from Chris. Chris saying, sorry, this is a random question, but can all the information summary be extracted to, for instance, Excel only, or be converted to PDF?
Sorry, I'm trying to find my unmute button. Great question. The information can also be transposed onto, PowerPoint and PDF. Just trying to exit out of my screen, and I'm struggling to, even though I'm escaping for some odd reason. But yes, that information is available. I think what's important and critical for you to do, and if you're asking those type of questions, you're the right person to be honestly attending those Thursday and Friday webinars, because they expand on this quite largely. So they'll focus on a particular area, show you the information that's available, how you're able to extract it, and how you can also possibly utilize it and visualize it. But it is there. So essentially on the dashboard, if I could go back a few slides, because I can't log out of my slides. I'm looking for that one that gives a holistic view. If you will allow me, I'm sorry, I'm hurting your eyes going back so rapidly. There we go. It's here somewhere. Yes. So in this area, there's an option to export. I just want my little red pen again. Here, there's an option around exporting. So you'll see here, there's an option around PowerPoint, around PDF, so you can transpose of your data onto those platforms as well. So really play around with the tool. You will not break it. And yeah, just expand as much as possible on what's feasible and what's not yet. Okay. And we also look forward to your feedback. So if there's something missing as well that you're not quite finding from the information that we're providing, also still contact help desk so that we can then explore some of the suggestions that you may have. Okay. Is that it, Jerry? No more comments or questions?
I'm on mute. Patricia has her hand up, so I'm going to allow her to talk. Patricia, I allowed you to talk. You can press the unmute button, then you can put your question here. Patricia, over to you. All right. So let me quickly move to the next question while she's still finding her unmute button. Marisa is asking, apologies, my school only finished at 2:30 every day. I am not able, so I'm always not able to attend this information sessions. is it possible to view them afterwards, even if we don't earn 6 points?
Unfortunately, to my understanding, not. I used to, to my understanding, people that receive the recordings to the webinars are people that have attended. So you can't just register and then, request the recording thereafter. But what I will say that might be critical and assist you as a school that's obviously noted a real challenge, and it's quite a valuable one, is just note down the provincial official that's responsible for your province. So if, for example, you are from Northern Cape, take down Yankee's email address, and then you would be able to engage with him directly to say, hang on, I'm really keen on 1, 2, 3. These are the limitations that we have. And you might not be the only school. There are, I'm sure, other schools around you that have the same type of challenge. And perhaps something can then be arranged specifically for that cluster of schools because you've shown interest in that. Okay. I think the fear is just that when we do just send out to anybody that registers, we don't quite know where it's landed, how it's landed, who's needing assistance, and so on. But yeah, maybe it's something that our team also needs to take offline and explore. So thank you for raising that. But please just take the details of your provincial coordinator. Thank you so much.
All right. Marisa, just to add on that, you can still register for this webinar. So there are afterworks that are sent out, even though you didn't manage to attend. But it's very important to attend in person so that if you have any questions, we'll be able to answer them. So please do register, even though you know that you will not be able to attend the sessions. I see Helen's hand is up.
You covered me there, Jerry. Yeah, just to let you know that if you register to attend the webinar, you will receive an email with the slides and the recording, but you will not appear on the register. So if you know that sort of school finishes at 2:30 and you're not able to attend the webinar, but you're interested in the topic, you will register for that event and you will receive an email with that content, but not be reflected on the register. But as Jerry said, the benefit really comes in being able to engage with the facilitator and ask those questions. But hopefully receiving the content, if you are interested to go through it, you will receive it.
Awesome. Thanks for
Thank
that,
you so much, Helen, for that clarity. All right. Patricia, are you able to unmute? All right, looks like it's a challenge on this. There's a challenge on their side. So I will continue. So yes, Helen, you did mention in the chat that if you register but do not attend, you will get an email with the slides and recording. So thank you there. Mohadi is asking, how can I get the DDD access forms?
There we go. Thank you. I was waiting for somebody who has been listening to me throughout to just bring that up. Okay. All right. I'm thankful for all the questions. I'll leave this for last. So I'm going to go on to the dashboard landing page. This is where I am. That's the background that you see. And when you are here, instead of clicking on the login that I've been preaching the whole afternoon, you are then going to go where it says support. So under support, you find quite a lot of information, frequently asked questions, DDD submission. There's an area that says request access. So I'll repeat that again. You're on the dashboard landing page where you would have opened your browser and typed in www.dbedashboard.co.za. And thereafter, you go and click on support, and then you go to the last option, request access. When you click on request access, it immediately redirects you here, where it then says, ready to get started, access the DDD dashboard. Access to the DDD dashboard is available. You're going to click on this download access form, and it looks as follows. You have to then complete this form, and upon completion, you can then send to your EMIS officials or IT experts, or alternatively, you can then send to the help desk. However, the disclaimer here is that you should always attach a copy of your ID. It does not have to be certified, but we do need a copy of your ID. And I think The one area, or rather the segments I'd like to explain before we part ways this afternoon, is to say this section here around type of user, you would then obviously click whether you're a new user or existing user. I always say, if you are unsure, just click on new user, and then you get the type of request. So a lot of the times this section is the one that confuses officials. So you get that area that speaks about dashboard access. This is standardized access, meaning you don't see learner and educator names. If you tick that box, then your supervisor on this form just needs to sign off here where it says authorization for default account. So whether it's your circuit manager who's your supervisor or a CES or something, they then need to sign that area. However, if you have ticked the PI access box, as you see represented here, you then need to ensure whoever your supervisor is, they need to sign off at the bottom of the form, the very last part where it says PI access authorization. And the other important disclaimer whenever you're selecting PI is that you must give a short motivation. So here where it says declaration, it's essentially for you to then say, for example, I am a subject advisor. I need to be able to profile learners and educators. Therefore, I need to identify them by name. A sentence as short, as sweet as that suffices. And then whoever your supervisor is would then sign off. And that's essentially it. Remember, there's still the rest of the form to complete, but these are the areas I've left out because they're quite obvious, of course, there on the form. But if you are stuck, remember to always just refer again to those provincial teams that we have, and also help desk is there to assist and guide you. But as long as you know where to get the form, I've covered my part. Thank you so much. Let me not keep you a minute extra. We are right on time. I hope that this was an informative session. Remember, there are going to be webinars of this fashion in the next coming weeks, every Wednesday at this very same time. So if you feel like this wasn't sufficient or you'd like a little bit more time to play around with this, please do join those again so that we make sure that everybody is assisted. Thank you again and have a blessed day. Bye.